The Wilsons were Hollywood royalty, a family whose every move was followed by millions on social media and covered by the press. Known for their extravagant lifestyle, they were no strangers to hosting lavish events. But their annual Christmas Eve party was something else entirely. It wasn't just a gathering. It was a spectacle. A-list celebrities, glittering decorations, gourmet food, and unforgettable entertainment were the norm. And this year promised to be their most ambitious celebration yet. In the weeks leading up to the party, the Wilsons teased their fans with glimpses of the preparations. Instagram stories showed an army of decorators transforming their mansion into a winter wonderland. Crystal ornaments sparkled on towering Christmas trees, and custom-made gingerbread houses lined the dining table. The piece de resistance, however, was the promised technological marvel that would make this year's party truly unique. The buzz around the event reached a fever pitch when the Wilsons revealed the centerpiece of their evening: an advanced drone outfitted with state-of-the-art cameras and artificial intelligence. Nicknamed SkySanta, the drone was designed to capture and live-stream the party from an aerial perspective, giving fans around the world a glimpse into the exclusive affair. "It's going to be magical," Patricia Wilson, the family matriarch and an Academy Award-winning actress, declared in an interview. "We want to share the holiday spirit in a way that's never been done before." When Christmas Eve arrived, the Wilson mansion was a sight to behold. Guests arrived in designer gowns and tuxedos, stepping out of luxury cars onto a red carpet lined with snow machines. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Carolers dressed as Victorian figures sang by the grand staircase, and a string quartet played holiday classics near the fireplace. The air was filled with the scent of cinnamon, pine, and freshly baked pastries. As the party reached its peak, SkySanta made its grand debut. Rising from the center of the room in a cloud of mist and glitter, the drone immediately captured everyone's attention. It hovered gracefully above the crowd, its sleek silver body reflecting the twinkling lights of the chandelier. Guests waved and posed for the camera, eager to be part of the live stream. First, everything went perfectly. The drone captured stunning footage of the festivities, seamlessly navigating between rooms and even venturing outside to film the snowy gardens. The live stream garnered thousands of viewers within minutes, with fans and media outlets sharing clips across platforms. "Leave it to the Wilsons to make Christmas cinematic," one commenter wrote. But as the evening progressed, something changed. SkySanta, which had been operating flawlessly, began to behave erratically. It hovered for too long in one spot, its movements jerky and unpredictable. Guests laughed nervously, assuming it was a minor glitch. But then the drone's lights flickered, and its camera lens rotated wildly, as if scanning the room for something or someone. The laughter turned to murmurs of concern when SkySanta swooped lower than intended, narrowly missing a tray of champagne glasses carried by a waiter. Patricia Wilson tried to reassure her guests, but the tension was palpable. "It's just a technical hiccup," she said, her smile strained. "Nothing to worry about." However, the situation quickly escalated. The drone, now buzzing louder than before, zipped across the room, narrowly avoiding collisions with guests and decorations. One particularly close call sent a shower of ornaments crashing to the floor, shattering into glittering shards. "Turn it off," someone shouted, but the controls appeared unresponsive. As chaos unfolded, the live stream continued, broadcasting the unfolding disaster to its massive online audience. Comments flooded in, ranging from jokes about high-tech holiday fails to genuine concern for the guests' safety. Patricia's son, Ethan, a tech-savvy teenager who had been instrumental in programming SkySanta, rushed to the control panel in an attempt to regain control. What had started as a show of cutting-edge technology and holiday cheer had turned into a spectacle of an entirely different kind. And as the drone's erratic behavior grew more aggressive, one question loomed over the glamorous gathering: what had gone wrong with SkySanta? As SkySanta continued its erratic behavior, the mood in the Wilson mansion shifted from festive to tense. Guests huddled together, nervously glancing at the rogue drone as it darted unpredictably through the air. Patricia Wilson's attempts to maintain composure were beginning to falter. Her husband, Greg, a renowned director known for his calm under pressure, stepped in to defuse the situation. "Everyone, please remain calm," he said, raising his voice above the hum of the drone. "We've got this under control." But it was clear they didn't. Ethan, who was furiously typing commands into the drone's control panel, looked up with frustration etched across his face. "It's not responding," he exclaimed. "The system's locked me out." His words sent a ripple of concern through the room. The chaos was compounded by the fact that the live stream was still active, broadcasting every awkward moment to an audience that now numbered in the millions. Social media erupted with hashtags like #DroneDisaster and #SkySantaFail. Memes and screenshots flooded the internet, capturing guests' startled expressions and the drone's erratic movements. "Is this the plot of a new Wilson family movie?" one viewer quipped on Twitter. Amid the growing hysteria, the drone's behavior took an even stranger turn. It began to focus on specific individuals in the room, hovering ominously above them for several seconds before moving on to its next target. When it zeroed in on a famous pop star, she shrieked and ducked behind the Christmas tree. "What is it doing?" she cried. "Why is it following me?" Ethan's panic grew as he analyzed the drone's logs on his tablet. "It's like it's scanning people," he muttered to himself. "But for what?" His words caught the attention of his parents. Patricia knelt beside him, her voice urgent. "What do you mean, scanning? What is it looking for?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted, his hands trembling. "But it's not following any of its programmed commands. Something, or someone else, is controlling it." The revelation sent chills through the room. The possibility that SkySanta had been hacked was both terrifying and humiliating. Greg immediately called for the mansion's security team, who arrived armed with equipment to disable the drone. But as they approached, the drone seemed to sense their intentions. It zipped higher into the air, its buzzing now a deafening roar. The security guards hesitated, unsure of how to proceed without causing further damage. Patricia took a deep breath and addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "we deeply apologize for this disruption. Please make your way to the garden while we handle this situation." The guests began to file out, casting wary glances over their shoulders as they left the chaotic scene behind. Outside, the garden was lit with fairy lights and lanterns, creating an idyllic setting that sharply contrasted with the turmoil inside. But the tension among the guests was palpable. Groups whispered theories about what could have caused the drone to malfunction. "It's got to be a technical glitch," one guest suggested. "Drones mess up all the time." Another guest wasn't so sure. "Did you see the way it was targeting people? That's not normal. Someone's messing with it." Back inside, Ethan was racing against time to regain control of SkySanta. He scoured the drone's logs for any sign of a breach. Finally, he found something, a line of code that hadn't been there before. It was encrypted, but its presence was undeniable. "Someone hacked it," he confirmed, his voice heavy with dread. "And they're still in control." Greg, standing beside his son, clenched his fists. "Can you trace it?" "I'm trying," Ethan replied, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "But whoever did this knows what they're doing. They've covered their tracks." As the family struggled to neutralize the threat, SkySanta took its chaos to new heights. It swooped low over the dining table, knocking over an elaborate centerpiece and scattering plates and glasses across the floor. It then darted toward the fireplace, where its proximity caused the flames to flare dangerously high. The few staff members who had stayed behind scrambled to extinguish the fire before it spread. The situation was spiraling out of control, and the Wilsons knew they were running out of options. Patricia grabbed Ethan's arm, her eyes filled with desperation. "You have to stop it," she pleaded. "This can't go on." "I'm doing my best, Mom," Ethan said, his voice strained. "But this isn't just a simple hack. Whoever's doing this, they're playing with us." As SkySanta buzzed ominously above their heads, Ethan's words hung in the air. The realization that the drone's actions were intentional, and perhaps even personal, sent a wave of fear through the family. What had started as a celebration of holiday cheer was quickly turning into a nightmare, and the Wilsons were at the center of it. The Wilsons had faced challenges before, but nothing like this. The once lively party had devolved into chaos, and SkySanta's rogue behavior showed no signs of stopping. Ethan's discovery of the mysterious code only deepened the family's sense of dread. As they huddled in the control room, trying to devise a plan, the drone continued its erratic rampage inside the mansion. From the garden, guests could still hear the unsettling hum of the drone's propellers. Speculation ran wild among the crowd. "It's probably just a glitch," one guest insisted, trying to calm the others. But the murmurs of doubt persisted. "This feels deliberate," someone else argued, "like it's being controlled by someone with a grudge." Inside, the Wilsons were grappling with a rapidly escalating crisis. Ethan was determined to trace the hacker's identity, but his attempts were repeatedly thwarted by layers of encryption. "This isn't some amateur prank," he said, his voice tight with frustration. "Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." Greg, pacing the room, stopped suddenly and looked at his son. "What about the live stream?" he asked. "Can we use it to track them?" Ethan's eyes lit up with the hint of an idea. "Maybe," he said, turning back to his laptop. "If I can isolate the stream's metadata, I might be able to find the source." As Ethan worked furiously, Patricia tried to keep the staff calm. One of the waiters approached her hesitantly, holding a shattered piece of ornament from the destroyed centerpiece. "Ma'am," he said, his voice shaking, "do you think this could be intentional? Like someone's targeting you?" Patricia hesitated before responding. "I don't know," she admitted, "but it's starting to feel that way." Ethan's breakthrough came faster than expected. "I've got something," he announced, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "The stream's being routed through multiple servers, but I found a signal anomaly. It's bouncing back to a location not far from here." The revelation stunned the room. Greg, ever the decisive one, immediately suggested they send someone to investigate. "We can't just sit here and wait for this to get worse," he said. "If we know where they are, we need to act." The location Ethan traced led to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Greg dispatched 2 members of their security team to check it out, while Ethan continued working on regaining control of SkySanta. Meanwhile, the drone's behavior was growing increasingly menacing. It began targeting family portraits and holiday decorations, as if mocking the Wilsons' carefully curated image of perfection. In the warehouse, the security team discovered a setup that confirmed their worst fears. Multiple monitors displayed live footage from SkySanta's cameras, along with lines of code scrolling across the screens. It was a makeshift command center, hastily assembled but highly effective. Whoever was behind the hack had planned this attack meticulously. Back at the mansion, SkySanta's actions reached a chilling new level. It began projecting images onto the walls, grainy, distorted footage of the Wilson family. Some clips were recent, from earlier in the party, but others were older, private moments that hadn't been recorded by the family. "How is this possible?" Patricia whispered, her face pale. "Those moments were never filmed." The projection sent shockwaves through the room. Guests who had ventured back inside to collect their belongings froze, staring at the walls in disbelief. "Is this some kind of sick joke?" one of them asked. But the fear in their voices suggested they already knew the answer. Ethan, watching the projection from his laptop, noticed something that made his blood run cold. Hidden among the images was a fragment of text, a string of numbers and letters that seemed out of place. "That's a message," he realized. "Whoever's doing this is trying to tell us something." As Ethan decoded the string, the security team returned with news from the warehouse. "The place was rigged," one of them reported. "We barely made it out before the whole thing went up in flames." The implications were clear. The hacker wasn't just messing with the Wilsons, they were sending a message. They were in control. And as Ethan finished decoding the string, the meaning became horrifyingly clear. The message read, "Your perfect world ends tonight." The Wilsons were no strangers to drama, but this was unlike anything they had ever faced. SkySanta wasn't just a malfunctioning piece of technology. It was a weapon in the hands of someone with a vendetta. And as the night wore on, it became clear that the Wilsons weren't just dealing with a technical glitch. They were under attack. The message Ethan decoded left the Wilsons reeling. "Your perfect world ends tonight." Those words lingered in the air, a chilling promise that shook them to their core. The family had always been in control of their image, carefully curating every aspect of their public lives. But now, they were under siege, and the facade they had so meticulously built was crumbling. As SkySanta continued its relentless assault on the mansion, Ethan worked desperately to regain control. Patricia and Greg, meanwhile, tried to rally the staff and salvage what remained of the party. But the atmosphere was heavy with fear and confusion. Even the most seasoned employees, accustomed to the chaos of celebrity life, were at a loss. The drone, meanwhile, had begun projecting even more disturbing footage onto the walls. The images were no longer just of the Wilson family. They now included moments that exposed their vulnerabilities. Financial disputes, private arguments, and even scenes of heartbreak that had never been public knowledge were on full display. It was as if whoever was behind the attack wanted to strip the family of every shred of dignity. Patricia, standing in the middle of the room, stared at the footage in horror. "How do they have this?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Greg wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his own expression a mix of anger and despair. "They're trying to destroy us," he said through gritted teeth. Outside, the guests were beginning to leave. The chaos had proven too much, even for those accustomed to the unpredictable nature of Hollywood events. Social media was ablaze with speculation, and the Wilsons knew that their reputation was hanging by a thread. Ethan's breakthrough came in the form of a counter-programming attack. By analyzing the rogue code, he discovered a backdoor that the hacker had overlooked. "I can override the system," he announced, his voice filled with both determination and exhaustion. "But I need a distraction." Greg nodded, his jaw set. "We'll give you one." With a plan in place, Greg and Patricia led the remaining staff in an effort to divert SkySanta's attention. Using everything from laser pointers to handheld mirrors, they managed to confuse the drone sensors long enough for Ethan to execute his override. The tension in the room was palpable as the minutes ticked by. Finally, with a triumphant shout, Ethan hit the final command. SkySanta froze mid-flight, its lights dimming as its propellers slowed to a halt. The silence that followed was deafening, but the relief was short-lived. Ethan's laptop screen flashed with a new message. "This isn't over." Before he could react, the drone powered back on, its movements now eerily deliberate. It hovered in place for a moment before shooting towards the front doors, crashing through them and disappearing into the night. The Wilsons were left in stunned silence. The drone was gone, but the damage had been done. Their home was in shambles, their guests had fled, and the live stream had captured it all. The question of who was behind the attack remained unanswered, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just a random act of sabotage. It was personal. In the days that followed, the Wilsons tried to pick up the pieces. Patricia and Greg issued a public statement apologizing for the chaos and thanking their guests for their understanding. Ethan, meanwhile, continued to investigate, determined to uncover the identity of the hacker. Despite the ordeal, the family refused to let the incident define them. They worked together to rebuild their image, drawing strength from each other and the support of their close friends. But the events of that night left an indelible mark, serving as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities that come with fame and technology. As Christmas approached, the Wilsons decided to scale back their celebrations, opting for a quiet evening at home. The experience had humbled them, forcing them to reevaluate what truly mattered. And while the mystery of SkySanta's sabotage remained unsolved, they found solace in the fact that they had faced the ordeal together. Somewhere, far from the Wilsons' now quiet mansion, a figure sat in a dimly lit room, watching the archived footage from the drone. The room was sparse, save for a cluster of screens that glowed ominously in the dark. On one screen, a replay of the drone's final moments filled the room with flickering light. The figure leaned forward, typing deliberately, as a new sequence of code scrolled across the screens. "Merry Christmas, Wilsons," they murmured to themselves, their voice low and measured. "Until next year." They pressed a final key, and the screens went dark. Back at the Wilson mansion, Ethan stared at his laptop, running another diagnostic scan in the hopes of finding a clue. A A small notification pinged on his screen, alerting him to an unidentified signal. His heart sank as he realized it was coming from the drone, somewhere out there, still active. He called out to his parents, his voice tinged with both frustration and fear. "It's not over." Greg and Patricia exchanged a knowing glance. They had weathered the storm, but the shadow of SkySanta and the unknown figure behind it still loomed large. As they sat down together for their quieter Christmas celebration, the family made a silent vow. They would be ready for whatever came next.